Hi, Xenia.
Hi, John.
How are you doing? You okay? Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Going to talk social media, managing social media, the churn, the never ending posting. Oh my God, we've just got to keep posting all day, all the time, haven't we? It never ends. It's like,
Never, never ends. It definitely never ends. Yeah.
yeah, it can be really hard work, can't it, managing multiple social channels? So I suppose if you're an agency, if you're a freelancer, something like that, you've got multiple brands, multiple. It's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, not just the posting part, but you also need to be on social all the time, right? To see the trends, to be in touch with the culture, with everything that's happening, with all the viral memes and everything for inspiration. So it's not just posting, it's this constant social media presence that you need to have in order to be in touch with what's current.
Yeah. Do you think management think it's really easy?
If management thinks it's really easy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if today that still applies. I hope it doesn't. But when I was running my own social media agency and I was working with clients, they definitely thought, this is something that, everybody can do. I mean, they have a Facebook account, they have a Twitter account, they post on their Instagrams accounts. So, everybody can do that. So I hope it doesn't apply today, but we still hear that this is something that people need to sell and need to explain and need to convince of the value of it and of the strategicness of it. So, yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's still there.
Yeah. Do you think we should think of it as because we think of like television and radio and writing a book, I suppose that
Yeah.
type of publishing, those types of publishing, right? We spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of effort, we take those things really seriously. If you make a television program, for example, you take it really seriously, right? If you make a
Right.
radio program, the same. I used to work in radio, right? And like everybody used to turn around and say, oh, it's great, must be great fun just going. But the amount of preparation you did beforehand was incredible. Do you think we should take social media a little bit more seriously, like that? Do you think people do?
I do think that's where it's heading. Production, content studios, in-house, and agencies that focus on that. And I think social media is being treated more and more by consumers as well um, as TV, right? Like you look at TikTok, right? You just sit and you watch it, continuously for entertainment, and it does have the same type of value for consumers. And when you look at brands and when you look at social media managers, they're starting to treat it in the same way, right? Writing scripts, having everybody think about the production process for the content piece, and also this move into producing maybe less content, but more quality pieces, bigger pieces that take some time to think about them creatively, to produce them, to write them, to act them, right?
Mm.
So yes, it does. It starts to be an entire publishing machine.
Yeah. If we made a television program and nobody watched it, we'd be fired, right?
Yeah.
You'd be cancelled. Same as in radio. It used to be when I was in radio. It used to be three surveys and you've gone. So if you drop three surveys in a row, you're gone. That's just it. And you're gone. We don't have that level with social media, do we? We post out all this crap all day long, and nobody reads it. Nobody looks at it, and we do the same.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But I think that's changing as well. I think if you're not getting success on social, again, agencies get fired.
Mm.
People, functions, roles inside companies get canceled, get removed from the organization if it doesn't work. And I think what's important is to keep this culture of experimenting, right? Not to take it to the other extreme where you're trying, you're posting on TikTok or on Instagram or on LinkedIn, if you have a B2B, brand, and you're posting for a month or 2 months and it doesn't work and you just, give up. That's another path that is, not very good for your brand that you can go on. So this balance of, okay, persisting and experimenting until you hit maybe the right results, until you hit the right audience for your brand. But also, when do you give up? When do you, make a post-mortem for the experiment, and you look at what worked, what didn't work, and, you call it a day, and maybe you move on to a different social media platform, or you move to, maybe social media is not for every single brand, right? B2B software is notoriously hard. I know that from our own experience at Plannable. It is very, very hard to build it in a way that is successful, but also not cringe, authentic, and relatable to the audience. It is so, so hard, and sometimes you have to give up on some platforms. Like Facebook is not the right platform for us. We tried it for a couple of times. We tried it with ads as well. Doesn't work, you move on to the next platform. But this balance of how much experimentation until you declare that this doesn't work for our brand, that we should move on to something else, and maybe not social, maybe email marketing or blog or SEO, or so many other channels out there. But yeah, you have to push and experiment in a way that you can see if it really works for you or not.
You mentioned cringe. There's a lot of cringe out there, isn't there?
It is, yes, it is. So much, and
Ooh, I know. It's like, why did you post that?
and sometimes it looks okay at that moment in time. Like, if you remember, there was this entire trend on TikTok with corn. Like, there was a video that went viral about corn, and everybody was doing posts and memes around that. And then half a year goes by, and you look back and you're, oh God, why?
Oh my God. What did I do? It's like looking back at the 1970s, isn't it, and thinking, oh my God, why did I wear that?
Exactly. It's like reading my Facebook posts from high school.
So where do you see the heart? Where do you see the pain points for an agency or a freelancer? Do you see it in the creating, the kind of the getting approval from clients, or the reporting or the workflow? Where do you see the biggest issues?
So many. I mean, I'm sure an agency founder can talk about a lot of those problems, but the ones that we see from being a vendor into the agency space, the problems are around the client relationship, and how do you manage it in the smoothest way possible? How do you gather feedback from clients? How do you have this approval process that is just the right amount of approvals? Maybe not, don't have it too sophisticated. Maybe you don't need 100 levels of approval processes, but you also need some sort of approval process, and figuring out what the approval process should be and what the feedback communication and workflow should look like. And also for every particular client, because every client is different, and you need to, you've been working with a client for 3-4 years, and your communication is different than with a newer client, where you need more feedback, you need more approvals in place. So figuring all of that out, and also operationalizing it, right? Putting it into place with the right tools, with the right tech stack, understanding what the client wants, what their brand is, what their product is, what their culture and audience, and how to create the right content for them, and understanding if they're happy with the content that you're creating. All of those things are definitely challenges. And also reporting, you mentioned, John. That's a big one. How do you make the client understand the success, right? And what success should look like, right? Setting those
exactly, because it might not be a sale. It may not
Exactly.
be a sale. Exactly.
And those needs that needs to be a conversation very early on in the relationship, right? What does the client expect? What do you know that you can provide? From your own experience working with other clients in that industry. Setting those expectations, balancing them out, and then doing the work and explaining the results, giving context for those results, is very, very important, and helping the client understand the metrics as well, because not all of them might be very social media data savvy. So putting all of that into context and showing the progress that you're delivering, I think, that's definitely a challenge as well.
Yeah. Do you think creating workflows is important? Kind of like a specific set workflow, and that we do this, and then we've got what we want at the end of it. Do you think that works?
Absolutely. I mean, unless you enjoy anarchy, but definitely finding your sweet spot with that, and that very much goes back to what type of agency you're building and where your culture is and the level of autonomy you have with your people and the relationship that you have with your clients, right? I mean, different levels of very structured, very there's a spectrum, right, from having nothing anarchy, right, which I don't think is
Yeah.
great for anybody, and then from that until you have like very rigid, very enterprisey, very
Yeah.
corporate type of workflows, and you need to find where you are exactly with your
Yeah.
agency and with the level of relationships that you have with your clients and with what works for your people as well. But some structure is absolutely useful so that things don't fall through the cracks, so that everybody knows what they have to do, what the job is to be done, so that people don't scramble for information and for what the next step is. So some structure, some planning, some type of guidelines are absolutely important, and they help you from avoiding mistakes, from not messing it up with the client account, and just aligns everybody. I think that's important. I think everybody would agree that alignment in a team and with clients is important, and I think a very good,
Yeah.
very solid workflow achieves that, but you don't have to go overboard with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think when I've spoken to agencies myself, it's either one or the other. Because I mean, we do live in quite a binary world these days, and blame social media for that. But it's like it's either like chaos,
Yeah.
anarchy, or it's the strictest workflow, and it's the same workflow for every single client, and then you
Right.
stifle the creativity. And
And yeah, and you know what else, John? I think it's every single workflow for every client, and the same workflow that you had maybe 2 years ago, which
yeah,
is your work evolves, social media evolves, your team grows, things change. We are in such a dynamic environment that you just can't design a workflow and stick with it forever. It needs to change, and you don't necessarily have to be resistant to that change. I think it's more healthy if you embrace all of those changes, right?
mm,
You have new people in the team, they come up with ideas, and you need to look at the workflow as a living organism, is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah. And it's good to write that workflow down as well. I think instead of having like one person in the company or the agency having it all in their head, and they're like
Yeah,
the gatekeeper of the knowledge, and everybody has to go to them. What do I do next? What do I do next? To
yeah,
have everybody be, and I know some agencies are a little bit wary of doing that because they don't want somebody to take the workflow and become a freelancer and do their own
yeah.
thing. But I think I think it's good to share the workflow abound.
Absolutely. And documenting the workflow,
Yeah.
I mean, very important. You don't want this entire knowledge to live just in just in one people's brain.
Mm,
It's dangerous. So yeah, just documenting it, putting it into place. It doesn't need to be like this entire encyclopedia. Again, meta work, um, busy work is not necessarily what I'm preaching, but just having it in, a raw document that everybody can follow and reference it is,
yeah.
helpful.
How do you get clients to stick to the workflow?
Ooh, spicy
Ooh.
question.
Mm,
um, I guess it's tricky, right? Because you don't want to enforce that. I know that from my own experience as the client.
mm,
When I work with other vendors or with agencies, I do not enjoy when they, if I work on Slack, I would love to have a channel with them on Slack. I don't want them to force me to work in Basecamp or in Microsoft Teams, right? So I
mm.
want them to obviously um, just arrange everything around me so that it's easier for me to work. But at the same time, I think it's important to help them see the value in that workflow, right? So
Yeah.
selling the workflow itself. not just enforcing it and this is, the way we work, but selling it, helping me and, their clients understand how that workflow is helpful and what the value of that is going to be, because that's what client cares about. They care about the results, they care about the project in the end. So if this is for the greater good of the project and the results are going to be better in the end because we have this workflow, it's a no-brainer. But in the end, you also need to be flexible with them and work around their own needs.
Yeah, do you think it's a good idea every now and then, maybe if you are experiencing workflow issues with a client, which I think everybody has at the end of the day, don't they? To have a conversation and just say, look, this is how we need to work. If you want the results, then this is, and be honest with them and just say,
I think so. Why not? And also, I think people don't talk that much about the processes and the workflows. They talk a lot about the work itself that they deliver. There's a lot of feedback around that, a lot of feedback around the results. But how we get there, the entire journey, the entire flow, there's not that much conversation around that. So making sure that you put it on your list, on your agenda when you talk to the clients and asking feedback specifically on how everything happens, I think that's very valuable. And yes, sometimes you have to have an honest conversation with them, just like you said.
Yeah, I think sometimes we try and please the client instead of get results for the client, which can be a slightly different thing, can't it?
This is, I think, one of the biggest challenges in the agency life, right? You want to please the client, but you also know what might be better for their business, and how do you balance that is an art and science.
Yeah. So how can we speed up approvals? Because I've been places where legal has to see everything. I was working with a big charity down in London a few years ago, and every email marketing campaign, I mean, even they were sending recipes out, and even just a recipe for some pasta, right? It would have to go through legal. That's why, and like every post, every comment, everything. And legal would take like a week to approve everything. So you're living then in a situation where all your social media content and everything is like a week behind. Yeah. How do we get around this?
I think it's all about making it very, very easy, dead easy for the clients to approve it. If they need to jump through 1,000 hoops in order to see the content and give approval on that content, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? So if we think about design agencies, right, and how they show websites and design work, Figma has made it so easy to approve content. You just share a link. You can see what the design is going to look like. You leave a comment directly on the design, and that's it's done. I don't have to receive a WeTransfer file that is huge, and I need to download it on my computer and open it up and then write an email and reference. All of that stuff is very, very hard, and it puts all of these roadblocks that just it makes me hard. It makes it very hard to to basically give feedback, and people naturally have a way of postponing something that is very difficult. So that's why it's gonna take a longer time. And we do the same with Plannable. So if you have to approve content for social, again instead of kind of sending us an Excel file that you need to look at it, download it, open a bunch of links to see the assets themselves, to see the images or the videos, or if I receive an email with a bunch of attachments, that makes it really hard for me to puzzle them, to put them together, and to share feedback and context. Whilst with Plannable, what we do is exactly like Figma. It's just a link. You see the work, you commented on it directly, and it makes the entire process very quick.
Yeah, I like that. What about brand voice? This is always so. I worked with an agency ages ago, and they had a antivirus company. That was one of their clients, right?
Okay.
They had a really big wedding dress retailer, and they had a really big fishing tackle e-commerce store.
Right.
And like you're switching your brain like from wedding dresses to viruses to fishing tackle, like, and you're switching on a dime almost. How do you cope with managing all those different voices, those tones, those styles? How would you manage that?
I don't know how agencies that have such a diverse
Mm,
portfolio manage it. It is, I can imagine it's really, really hard. There are some benefits in that, of course, because it kind of it exposes you to more stuff, to more
yeah,
inspiration out there. You can learn a lot from the from the wedding dress, you know, world and audience, and what you see, obviously in that space. And you can, it kind of takes you out of the box, forces you to think out of the box, and you might see something in that space that, applies crazily to
mm,
the, antivirus company. So there are some benefits, of course, but it is absolutely so hard to manage. You miss a lot of the stuff of the deep, focused and niche knowledge
yeah,
that you get to acquire when you're an agency that is focused on one industry only. Although the danger with this type of business model is that there's, risk of getting to getting to a plateau of some sort, right? You're in your own bubble all the time, and you might miss some of the other stuff that happens
yeah,
outside your world. So you need to force yourself and to expose yourself to everything else that happens in other industries, so that you get that inspiration, right? Because it can get tiresome to, continuously be in that same space.
yeah. Do you think writing down the voice and tone, having it all written down, having it like spelt out exactly how you should be, is that a good idea?
Maybe, but at the same time, I feel like the tone of voice is. I think the tone of voice had um, a larger meaning, or it had more weight a few years ago um, than it has now. It still
That's
absolutely
interesting.
has. It absolutely has weight, but I
Mm,
feel like we're more flexible with the tone of voice of our brands, right? And I think,
yeah,
social media has changed that a lot, right? One brand can have a particular tone of voice on LinkedIn, and then a slightly different tone of voice
yeah,
on TikTok, right? And
yeah,
I think that's, the change that um, actually TikTok brought on, and, so many other social media platforms. We're not that rigid with the tone of voice of our
right.
brand,
That's
right?
interesting. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, we're more
because
flexible with
companies
it.
would try and sound like people. Were they?
Yes.
It was cringe. It was like I just found it weird. It's like people would say, "Morning, guys. How's everybody today?" And you're selling stuff. You're like selling
Yeah.
TVs or something, or gadgets or whatever. And it's like that's weird to me. It's like for a company shouldn't behave like a person in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I mean, you can put the people behind the brand, behind the
Hmm.
company, to be the face of it, of course, and that's, I think, kind of the only option that you have if you're in the B2B space, when you sell something that is very vague, very abstract. When you sell, software or services, all you can do is, use the people behind the company and the brand to
Yeah.
talk about what you do.
Yeah.
But when a company talks just like a, just like a person, it's a little bit weird indeed. But about the tone of voice, I think you have to be flexible with it. But again, you
Hmm.
can't have two complete identities, or
No, of
multiple
course.
complete identities. It needs to be coherent across the web, and the world, outside as well, in the physical world, you need to represent the same brand and the same more or less tone of voice. But I think we get, a pass with being a little bit more flexible with it nowadays.
Yeah. So Plannable can help, can't it? It's a little bit different to kind of like, because you're you automatically kind of like think of Hootsuite, don't you? And it's like
Yeah.
that's like, oh, it's like you really don't want to open it, do you? It's like, oh, I don't know. I used to call it like it was like a spreadsheet. It's just like boring as hell. It's like opening like Microsoft Excel. It's like you
Yeah,
just you don't really want to, do you? So
exactly.
how does Plannable kind of differ from the the buffers and the Hootsuites and that?
Yeah, well, we take that dread out of the entire of the
Mm,
entire experience, by making it more simple, more easy, and more visual. I think, giving a space to social media creators, to social media managers, that is not, it's not clunky. It's very simple, very fresh, very easy to use, and very visual at the same time, right? You create content and you can see exactly what that content is going to look like once it's live, right? So you get a mock-up
mm,
of the actual posts whenever you're creating, content inside Plannable. You get to experience it as though it's already live. And then we make it super simple, very beautiful, very visual calendar where you can plan everything. And then it's all around the workflow, around how you create that content, how you share it with your team or with your clients, how you get that feedback. We bring everything into one simple place, and it's very logical, right? You get feedback right next to the post itself so you can understand, or right next on the post, on the text, on the caption. And yeah, it's all about kind of speeding that process up and making it very simple and as delightful as possible. That's kind of
mm.
what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, because it is hard. There's a lot to do, isn't there? There's a lot. The planning stage, the researching stage, the getting the approval, the actual creating the post, writing the post. Like you mentioned earlier, you write a post differently for LinkedIn than you would for TikTok, for example.
Yeah.
Um, you would do things differently. So there's a lot to do. Can Plannable help manage that? Can it manage that for multiple brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one challenge that a lot of agencies have is, how do I organize all of these accounts that I manage for my clients? I just can't put them, all together, just connect them and have, 100 pages connected to Buffer or to Hootsuite. So we bring more structure and organization in the process by, basically, you can create folders, right, for each brand, for each client that you manage, or if you're a brand, for each region maybe, or for each product. So it brings more organization into the process, and by separating them into these folders, it kind of helps you focus on each individual client or brand account, and it eliminates all of the possibility that you might publish the wrong thing on the wrong
I've
account,
just
which
written that down. I've just written exactly that down because it's so easy on some of these other apps to post the wrong thing on the wrong brand. I've
dangerously
I've
easy.
done it. I've done it.
it's
Oh,
yeah
it's
it's
like, and then you just think, oh my god, no! What have I
yeah
done? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So just such a simple solution, just different spaces for each brand. Like, very easy. You might think that it's a no-brainer and that, every
Mm.
software out there should have it, but it is definitely not the case. Yeah, so it really helps you focus on that, but also, it gives you the possibility of creating for each for a brand. It gives you the possibility of creating posts for each platform, and personalizing the posts,
Mm.
right? What you mentioned, right? You want to tweak those posts. You don't want to have the same content on each platform. Maybe it is the same content in the
Yeah, but
essence,
it's worded differently, slightly,
worded
very
differently,
slightly, different
and
length.
also some the length, and also some
Mm.
technical stuff, right? Maybe you tag
Mm.
an account. That account might not have the same ID on all of the platforms.
Yeah.
So small stuff, but bigger stuff, like the tone of voice, where you mentioned, right? So, yeah, the platform gives you the possibility to create that core content piece, but also personalize it for each platform individually.
And is it good for freelancers as well? as well as
Absolutely.
like agencies and that. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Agencies, freelancers, small and medium sized businesses.
Mm,
It's not for huge enterprises.
mm,
I can tell you that. I mean, because it goes back to what I said, it's a very simple in a good way, and product. So I think the problem with a lot of softwares out there is that they have added all the features that you can think in the world, and 90% of them are not relevant for the majority of us. So we streamed it down to the essentials basically, so that it doesn't clutter you, it doesn't bother you with all of those unnecessary functionality, and it's just what an agency would need to plan, or what a freelancer or a small business would need to plan, discuss content, publish it, and then look at the analytics for it.
mm. Fascinating. I could chat for ages and ages about this.
Well, me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love kind of like the whole planning and workflow, and need to do more of it. I think definitely. Xenia, where can we find Plannable? Give us some links.
Sure. So it's plannable.io, and that's where you can find the product. And you can sign up for free, and we give you an unlimited trial. You can test the platform for on your own schedule, so we don't have like a 14 days or a 7 days free trial. You can test it for as long as you want, up to 50 posts. So you can kind of schedule a month's worth of content and see, how it works for yourself. And it doesn't have any limitations in terms of features. And, we don't require you to give us your card or any of that stuff. So easy access. And then if you want to ask me any questions, you can just reach out on LinkedIn. Let me know you heard me on this podcast, and, I'd be happy to connect.
Fantastic. I'll put some links in the show notes and folks can give those a quick tap. Brilliant.
Perfect.
Thanks ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Had lots of fun.